Hi everybody, welcome back. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm a big comic book person, not the biggest, but one thing that bugs me is when these comic book movies come out, there's such a big fan basis of people who don't even read the comics or watch the cartoons. They just go and watch the movies and think they know everything they can based off of the movies, which I can understand treating it as a separate universe in like the comics in general. It's like a different universe or a different timeline or whatever. I understand that. I can sort of to a degree respect that. Well, yeah, I could respect that. But what gets me the most is the fact that they watch the movie, they think they know a lot about it because they heard these rumors or they look on Facebook or they look on this and that and go, I know what I'm talking about. And then, lo and behold, someone who really knows what they're talking about kind of just asks some questions like, oh, what about you think about this one? Or what do you think about that one? Or which one's your favorite? And they just kind of go, I don't know. I've never heard of those. And it's like, but you're talking like you know what you're talking about. It's like, I'm a big fan of them. Don't get me wrong. And I understand I have met people who never read comics. They go and see some of the movies. It gets them into the comics and they go and buy the comics. That's fine. They're getting into it. But when you're one of the people who go and see these movies and only see the movies and read none of the comics or know nothing about them and this and that, and then you start doing the whole fucking franchise thing, like, I remember back in when I was growing up and on the Batman animated series and they released Harley Quinn, she was still really, or she was new because she was introduced through the cartoon, then got her own comics. Then there was a bunch of people who were trying to be like her and blah 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 blah, and then she blew up. It's the same thing with Deadpool. He came out in the I want to say 1990, and when he came out, he was, just straight up villain, rip off of Deathstroke. And when everyone saw that and then they made him more comical and this and that, I was just kind of like, I can get on board with this. But then it became so popular and all over the place. I was like, I really don't care for him anymore. And then, no one really, a lot of people liked him. Don't get me wrong. I knew a lot of people liked him. I have a friend who is just like a diehard fan. Like, he still reads other comics and whatnot. But like, I guarantee you, if you were to put all of his comics against his Deadpool comics, that stack would be like, here's his comics, and like from the floor to the ceiling is Deadpool. Like, that's how I feel his collection is, which again, he's a big fan and that's a great thing. I mean, he's dedicated to Pool himself. But when the movie was coming out, like, everyone was like, oh, I love Deadpool and this and that. It's like, well, what was your favorite comic? I don't know. I don't have one. Never read them. Don't care to. It's like, I understand it's a funny movie and it has a lot of pop culture and it's got a lot of references and blah 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 blah. But that's what bugs me the most is the fact that people go to these films and then think they know what they're talking about and then they don't. And they try and fit into this nerdy thing. It's like gaming almost, Like, mostly I understand there's a lot of hardcore Call of Duty people out there. Battlefield, Halo. Don't get me wrong, they're fun games. I've been guilty of playing hours upon hours on all three. But there's also a shitload of other games out there that aren't just FPSs that everyone should be playing. Like, I mean, I love storytelling games. Like, one of my favorites from, like, I want to say it was the early 2000s was Deus Ex. I mean, that storyline was, like, super in-depth, and you can do so much random shit in it. It was fun, but not a lot of people played it. Not a lot of people cared for it. And then the friends that I do have that did play it, they were just like, oh, that game was so amazing, and blah, 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 blah. And it's the same thing where, like, whatever's popular, a lot of people just tend to go to. And whatever's popular, everyone has to be a part of. Otherwise, you're considered a loser and you're not cool. And I understand nerdy things nowadays are a big, big thing. That's fine. I've never had a problem with nerdy things being a big thing. I mean, I used to get my ass kicked for it. But, nowadays it's not as bad. I mean, you can literally just sit out there with like fandom stuff like a Doctor Who, a Dragon Ball Z, Harry Potter. You have all kinds of, like, the Marvel thing, the DC things, Dark Horse, all these things, a lot of anime, a lot of cartoons or whatever. And you won't have that fear anymore because there's a lot of fans around where you are of that series or multiple series of that. But like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even like 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's pretty much being nerdy, smart, and intelligent. You got your ass kicked for it. And that's why it's like it hits me hard when I see shit like, I'm part of this popular fan base even though I don't know fully everything. But I want to sound like I do, so I'm just watching the bare minimum or doing the bare minimum of it, like watching the movies. I know what I'm talking about. And then try and engage in this conversation in this nerdom and fandom And then it pisses people off because you're being very stubborn about it. It's like, no, 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 blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's just in the movies. That's not in any of the comics, or that's not in the cartoon, or blah, 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 blah. And you get in a really heated argument. I mean, I've done it plenty of times. And they're very stubborn. They're like, no, I know what I'm talking about. This is how it is. It's like, oh my God, it's frustrating. It is so frustrating. It's like one of the things I feel like it is like when you compare the book to the movie, or the movie into the game, or the book into the game into the movie, or whatever way that web goes, whatever way it goes. It's like the game can have so much more than the book, but it loses sight, or the movie cuts out so much, but it gets the gist of the book and makes it very really close, and it's really good, but it's not the full book. Or you have a game that's made into a book, into a movie, or a game that's made into a movie, then a book, and it's like they missed out so much. Or I mean, it's like there's so many random encounters that you have to encounter and do, as I make it fucking redundant. But if there's an encounter or just random fights, like every 5 minutes or whatever, it's like, yeah, they have to cut all that out. And when they write a book or a movie or whatever, or they just like sacrifice like a shitload. Like for instance, one of my least favorite movies I've seen based off a video game that I was really excited for was Max Payne. And did that thing miss it? I mean, they got like parts of it right, but overall it was like a mess. And then another one I was really excited for, and I've seen them all up to date, is the Resident Evil series. I am a diehard Resident Evil fan. I don't want to say I despise the movies. Like the first two I can get on board with. They've used a lot of elements from 1, 2, 3 for the first two, and I liked it. I loved how they did it. After that, though, it's just like gone. Like they try and use some things and small little elements from other parts of the games, but that's it. Like they have so much potential and they don't use it. And I'm just like, I don't understand it. But back to my original point is I understand you want to be a part of this stuff. And if you want to be a part of it, find your friends who have these comics that you're interested in. Go to your local comic book store and look for them. Go to like a big place that even sells like the graphic novel versions, where it's like issues 1 through 70 and like a book this thick. I was trying to find the camera. I'm so used to just doing this over here that like this thick or that thick, or even like those little small ones, but it's got like a majority of them in there, like maybe 1 through 10, 1 through 5, whatever. They have a collection of it. Start doing that. Make yourself invested into it. That way you can enjoy it. Don't just go based off the movies. Don't go just based off of the comics. I mean, don't get me wrong, the comics are really good. But the animated series and stuff of them are really good. The alternate universes of them are good. Just to a degree. But in general, it's like, you have to appreciate it as a whole and appreciate what it is instead of just going to the movies. Because the movies, as well as they can be, they miss a lot or leave out a lot. Or it's like within an hour and a half film, their main villain is dead, behind bars, or just somewhere out there. And that's it. It's like there's no bringing them back consistently. Like in the comics, however, it's like he's in this issue. 20 issues later, he's back. 5 issues, he's still in here. Now he's gone. Now he's back. And it's like, it's a constant thing. Or it's like just different series of it, and they don't follow the chronological time, but it's like at this point they were doing this, or at, it's like straight line. Here's a story over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here. And it's like stuff like that. And that's what I love. That's why I love it, because I mean, it can come back full circle. But when it comes to the movies, it's like pretty much if they die in the movie, they're just gone. There's no bringing them back. And that's where I feel like a lot of the superhero movies in general, it's like they could have used them again and again and again, but they're done. They're just dead. And I don't know. I feel like I'm really cheated out on that, But that's just me. I mean, I'm not sure if everybody feels that way or everybody thinks the same thing, but that's where I stand on comics and games. It's like, if you want to invest yourself into it, please make yourself invest into it. Don't just half-ass it. It's something that if you really commit to it, you will enjoy. You will really enjoy. And I understand it's like, for most people, it's like, I don't want to read this whole series. I just want to watch the movie. Like, I have friends and family who do the same thing. It's like, I'm a slow reader, so I like spend maybe like months on one book, and it's probably like 500 pages. It's just I have to find the energy to really want to read. I don't just read to read. I'm not that smart. I'm not one of those people. But at the same time, it's one of those, when I do read, I read a shitload. And I mean, some of the books that I love are like Dante's Inferno. Like, I love reading the Divine Comedy. It's a really hard read, but I love it. And my point of it, though, is like, I understand you don't want to spend the minutes to hours to days or weeks, depending on how fast you read or whatever, reading it. You rather watch a TV show or a movie on sort of based on that and just get the gist of it within an hour and a half. Or if it's like a series, you know, i.e. Game of Thrones. You don't want to read the books, but you want to watch the show, and it's, from what I've heard, is really close. I've barely finished the first book. Well, not really finished. I'm still reading it, but in general, it's like you want to know about it. You just don't want to read it, so you watch the show, and you're like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. And I can understand that to a degree, but it's one of those, like, I like to invest myself. If it's something I'm really really excited for, or it's like a film I want to watch, and there's a book off of it, I have to read those books eventually. Like the Hannibal series. Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal. Like, Red Dragon as a movie was really damn close, and I loved it. Silence of the Lambs, not really that close to the book, but it's still a good film. And then Hannibal, it's like, depending on how you take it, you know? It's a hit and miss in parts and so on and so forth. But it's done really, really well and stuff like that. It's like I read the books before I saw the movies, and I loved them. And then I just feel that sometimes when it's a book or a TV series or a movie adaptation of said books, it's not as well. And I feel that they could have done so much more, you know? But I understand you don't want to read and you rather watch, and it's just easier to watch. And I know that. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, it feels like you should, if you really, really want to have those kind of conversations with people, you really need to invest yourself, especially with comics. Comics, oh, I guarantee you say the wrong thing in front of like really diehard ones where they like talk about the author, the animator, the screen, like just everything. Everyone who did from smallest coloring to the smallest background, like those people that are diehard, you will piss them off. I am not that into it that way. Like, I know some of the writers or, you know, whatevers, but I have friends who like literally you don't know who did it and you mess up your facts. You're fucking just like, blah, 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 how do you not know this? You've read it how many times and so on and so forth. And it's just like, shit, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you all pissed off because I didn't know that. But that's the world you get into. I mean, that's with everything. It's like gaming. Oh, you haven't played this game? Blah, 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 blah. I give my friends that shit sometimes. But yeah, I mean that's my rant on this one. Will be comics and movies, or comics, movies, books, comics, movies, books, comics, movies, books. That's about it. I mean, at any rate, I think I've made my point. Just like, if you're gonna go into it, go full throttle. Make yourself known into it. That way you can enjoy those conversations, because believe me, they are enjoyable conversations. At any rate, I'll talk to you guys later. I hope this one's been a good one for you. Bye.